Ever feel like you're handed this rule book for grief, right? But the words are all blurry, pages are out of order. Like, isn't that what it feels like trying to deal with loss? It's messy, confusing, and just completely overwhelming. So
Yeah.
so what if instead of trying to make our grief fit into some perfect little box, what if we just embraced how raw and real it is? And that's actually what we're diving into today with this chapter, all about emotional well-being after,
Sure.
after loss.
It's interesting how this chapter, it wants us to see grief not as this straight line, from A to B,
Right.
but like a wave.
Okay.
It ebbs and flows.
Yeah.
Sometimes it crashes over you. You just don't expect it.
I love that analogy because it really it makes you realize that grief isn't something you just get over. It's
Exactly.
something you kind of learn to ride the waves, to
Mhm.
navigate.
Yeah.
And the first step, which this chapter really highlights, is just to acknowledge the waves even there.
Mm,
Don't fight it, don't pretend it's not happening, just be with it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that means being okay with all the feelings that come with grief.
Oh, absolutely.
Sadness and anger and loneliness, sometimes even relief, believe it or not. Just,
Yeah.
no judgment.
I think that's where a lot of us we kind of get stuck.
Yeah.
We're trying to put on a brave face for other people,
Mm.
or we feel guilty, especially if the loss came after a long illness.
Yeah,
We feel guilty for those moments of, oh well, at least you know.
exactly. But you see, this chapter, it reminds us that letting ourselves feel everything, all of it,
Mm.
without trying to push it down, that's actually a really important part of healing.
Okay.
It's like those emotions are trying to tell us something.
Mm-hmm.
And if we keep shushing them, they're just going to find a louder, a less healthy way to get our attention later on.
Right. It's like trying to hold like a giant beach ball underwater. You
Exactly.
can keep pushing it down, but eventually it's going to pop back up, probably in your face.
Exactly.
So we're acknowledging the wave. We're letting ourselves feel all these messy, mixed up emotions. What what comes next? What do we do with all this?
Well, the chapter really stresses that even though, yeah, everyone grieves, everyone goes through it, the journey is very personal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no right way to do it, no set time for moving on.
Ugh, that phrase, moving on. It's
Yeah.
like we're just supposed to pack up all that grief neatly in a box, ship it off somewhere, and never think about it again.
Exactly. And this chapter says, let go of that expectation.
Okay.
Be patient with yourself. Grief takes time, it takes work.
Yeah.
And it's okay if you don't have all the answers right away.
So we're letting ourselves feel it all, being patient with the process, but how do we actually, work through it emotionally? The chapter talks about expressing our feelings. And I do like that it goes beyond just the whole talk to someone.
Right.
Like it actually gives us some things to try.
It gives you techniques
Mm.
like journaling,
Yeah.
really helpful for processing grief and not just, pouring your heart out onto the page,
Yeah.
which, hey, can be good too. But this chapter talks about memory journals.
Ooh, memory journals. Tell me more about that.
So it's about shifting the focus a bit, not just the pain, but also celebrating the life of the person you lost.
Okay.
Writing down memories, those funny little things they did, even just their little quirks and habits. It's a way to keep their spirit alive,
Okay.
to have something to hold on to.
That's beautiful. It's like it's not about dwelling on the sadness, but making this active choice to remember the joy and the love.
Exactly.
All those things that made that person who they were.
Exactly. And this can be, it can be really therapeutic because it lets you connect with those good emotions at the same time as you're grieving. And that can be so healing.
It's like you're creating a living memory,
Yeah,
a tapestry woven with laughter and tears all at once.
exactly.
Yeah.
And as powerful as journaling on your own can be, the chapter also says it's really important to seek support from other people too.
Yes, building a support system.
Yes,
And it's not about being weak, not at all. It's actually a sign of strength to admit you don't have to go through this alone.
exactly. Reach out to friends, family, support groups, even professionals if you need to.
So it's about understanding that different kinds of support will give you different kinds of comfort.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
your friends and family, they give you that love and that familiar space to let it all out.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and they're there for you to, process everything that you're going through.
Yeah.
But then there are times when, maybe you need more of a structured way
Yeah.
to work through those emotions. That's where a therapist can be like really, really valuable.
Right, because they can give you the tools.
Exactly.
to actually deal with it in a healthy way.
Yeah,
Help you figure out those thoughts that aren't really helping and come up with better ways to cope.
exactly. And then you have support groups,
Yes.
which offer this unique kind of comfort. You connect with people who truly get it, you know?
Yes, that feeling of I'm not alone. It's so important when you're grieving because it can feel so isolating.
Absolutely.
And you know what I find interesting? This chapter, it goes from this very emotional internal work to something much more practical, like maintain a healthy routine. It's almost like it's saying, hey, grief isn't just in your head, it's in your body too, right?
Such a good point.
Mm.
That mind-body connection is
Mhm.
so powerful.
Mm.
When you're grieving, your body's going through it too.
Mhm.
You might be exhausted all the time. Your sleep's probably messed up. Your eating habits all over the place.
Tell me about it. I swear I could live off of comfort food when I'm feeling down. But you know what? This chapter does remind us that even if we don't feel like it, taking care of our physical health, it can really help our emotional well-being too.
Big time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, anything crazy. Just try to get on a normal sleep schedule, eat some decent food, and get a bit of exercise in there.
Okay, hold on. Let's pause on that word exercise for a sec, because I know a lot of people, myself included, we hear exercise and we think we got to go run a marathon, right? But that's not what this chapter's saying, is it?
No, not at all. It's about recognizing that even a little exercise can have a big effect on your brain.
Oh, okay.
Like studies show that just going for a walk, doing some yoga, even just stretching, it releases endorphins, which can really boost your mood.
Oh, so it's like giving our brains a little chemical pick-me-up. I like it.
Yeah.
So what else does the chapter suggest for finding those moments of calm in the middle of, everything that comes with grief?
Well, a big part of it is mindfulness and meditation. But I think we should go beyond just listing those things and really look at why they can be so helpful, especially when you're dealing with loss.
Yeah, because honestly, when you're deep in grief, sitting still and meditating, that can feel almost impossible.
It can feel like the last thing you want to do, right?
Yeah.
But what if, instead of thinking of it as an escape from the grief, we saw it as a way to just be present with it, gently.
Right.
It's not about clearing your mind completely. It's about observing your thoughts and feelings without judging them.
So being with the grief, not pushing it away.
Exactly. And there's so many ways to practice this. This chapter talks about guided meditations, which can be good if you're just starting out,
Mm-hmm.
and deep breathing exercises. You can do those anywhere, anytime, and they really help to calm your nervous system down.
It's funny how something as simple as deep breathing can have such a real effect on your body, like hitting the reset button on stress.
Totally. And finally, this chapter really emphasizes self-care, which, a lot of people misunderstand, especially when it comes to grief.
I think a lot of people think self-care equals bubble baths and spa days, which can be great, don't get me wrong.
Of course.
But that's not always possible or even what you feel like doing when you're grieving, right?
Totally. This chapter, it talks about self-care as any act of kindness, of compassion that you show yourself, especially when you need it most.
Mm-hmm.
It's about tuning into yourself, asking yourself, what do I need right now?
And that could change from day to day, couldn't it? One day it's letting yourself cry. Another day it might be setting boundaries with people, even if they mean well.
Exactly. Or it could be even simpler than that. Making sure you get enough sleep, eating something that makes you feel good, listening to music that lifts you up a bit. It's those little things, that help you keep going when you feel drained.
It's not selfish at all. It's
Ah.
essential for getting through grief in a healthy way, in a way that you can actually sustain.
Exactly. Building a routine for yourself that includes these acts of self-compassion, even when life feels chaotic.
Yeah, it's like creating little moments of peace in
Yeah.
your day where you're intentionally choosing to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you can't pour from an empty cup.
I love that. It's such a beautiful concept. Even when you're experiencing this profound loss, you can still find those moments of joy and connection.
Absolutely. And that's what this chapter is reminding us of. Grief is hard, yes, but it also has this way of making you appreciate life, your relationships, and just how precious everything is in a whole new way.
It's like, when you have something and it breaks, but then you put it back together and those cracks, they become part of its story. That's kind of what this is like.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
We're cracked open by this loss,
Yeah.
forced to face how fragile life is. But maybe when we put ourselves back together, we're even stronger in those places.
That's a powerful way to think about it.
Mhm.
And this chapter, it really reminds you that grief shouldn't be something scary, something you avoid, right?
Yeah.
It's just natural.
It's human.
Exactly.